Hello everyone. Now, if you're the kind of person, and don't be ashamed, a lot of people have been deceived in their lives, and a lot of people believe that they're doing the right thing. So if you're one of the people that decided that putting the Ukraine flag on your Facebook profile or your social media profile was a good idea, then that's okay. You may have even put a flag outside the house, which is also fine. Good morning, guys. So at the end of the day, you've got to look at what triggered you to do this and what made you think for one moment that it was a great idea in what you were supporting. And of course, what you were supporting, I would hope and like to think, was the actual protection of innocent lives, families, women, children, and many that would suffer at the hands of war. Maybe you didn't grasp the full extent of what the war was about. Maybe you didn't even know the previous history of the Ukraine and the fact that there were coups. There was an overthrow of the government, very similar to what we've seen with the Arab Springs, and also what we have seen with the colour revolutions. It followed the same path and the same track and the same infiltration. So when we look at Zelensky right now, most of us actually know that he is nothing more than a puppet for the Western powers, those who control a lot of things in the world. And yeah, you're being played again, unfortunately, in the theatre of war. One major concern right now, which I have for people all around the world who have supported this, are those who are suffering because of the sanctions that are actually in place around the world by most likely your government. Not only are they arming and funding heavily the war in the Ukraine, they are also people who will benefit from keeping the Ukraine in its grasps as a infiltrated society. Well, here's the big kicker. If your country participated in this, and if you were convinced that you should also show your solidarity with this, making out that leaders of this country were heroes, then this is all going to come to a very abrupt end. And I imagine that those countries who sent weapons and those countries that sent money and support and training, and the NATO countries that are involved, I have a feeling that the demise of your country that you live in is going to be pretty bad. Because if you haven't already noticed, the price of your food has gone through the roof. The cost of your living has grown absolutely massively, to a point where your energy bills, the fuel for your vehicles, and everything around you has become more expensive, and your life has probably suffered because of what's gone on. This is a direct result of your support for the war. This is a direct result of your virtue signalling to show that you think the Ukraine are in the right. I'm not picking sides on this. I like to stand by and be an observer of what's going on. But I can certainly see that this is no innocent war in regards to the Ukraine being the unfortunate country that Russia has invaded. I've dug deeper. I've looked into the reasons why, and I have a better understanding of what's going on there. I would imagine within the next week we are going to see a pivotal point in this war where Russia are able to take hold of one of the key strategic cities within that country. There's going to be more death. And talking about the number of deaths, we should actually bring into perspective the amount of damage that's actually happening in the Ukraine to show how the Ukraine is not winning this war by any stretch of the imagination, regardless of how many of the Western world's news will turn around and tell you that they're doing well. During World War II, there was that many Russians killed that the numbers were in the hundreds of thousands into millions. We're seeing exactly similar numbers in the Ukraine of Ukraine troops because they are not winning. They are being absolutely annihilated. And Russia are not really having many casualties. The jets that are being sent over, the tanks that are being sent over, the weapons, the missiles and everything that's being sent over by your country to aid in this war are no good. They're being shot down. They're not working. They're having no major impact against the war against Russia. In fact, even just the tanks alone, if you send one tank over, there has to be a large team of people that can support this. And it's the same with jets. Anyone that's worked in the military and the forces, there may be one pilot and one jet, but to support that, the team and the crew that's needed to support that can be up to 50 people, all highly trained and all highly specialised in those areas. So when you gift somebody a jet or a tank, it's not just one man they're going to stick in it and away he goes and fights the war. The whole support mechanism for this has to be in place. And sadly, the Ukraine do not have the trained people and the support mechanism to handle the equipment that's being sent out to them. They're losing badly. The impact for this as it goes on is going to get worse. And I want people to look at the long-term picture of how this could look and what it could look like. If your country has put sanctions upon Russia, if your country has sent arms, tanks, jets, soldiers, or even funding across to fight against Russia, Russia are not going to say, oh, well, that's okay. You were just doing your thing. We understand. No, that's not the case at all. You see, what's going to happen is once the Ukraine have been defeated and Russia have made a very bold point to NATO, who have been putting troops and weapons on the border of Russia for some time now, causing the problems and causing the aggravation which has led to the war in the first place. They're not going to forget that you've done this. So for everyone out there who's finding their money doesn't go far now, for all you out there that think supporting the Ukraine by putting a flag out there and thinking that your country is doing the right thing, it's going to be your demise. It's going to be the common man, us out there, who are going to suffer the great consequences of what will be brought upon us once Russia turns its sights against those that were against it. This, in time, could flow further. You look at the strategic alliances that they have with China. You look at the alliances they have trade-wise with the BRICS nations, which again will grow massively as more countries realise that it's probably the best bet for their future economy and their future survival to be part of this BRICS nation. And we're going to see the likes of Saudi Arabia and Mexico and other countries around the world joining this. These countries are going to trade between themselves, and in trading between themselves, it means your country is not part of this. Basically, a lot of countries are going to be excluded from the main body of trade, and that can be anything from oil and energy right down to the food that goes upon your table. People will be cold, people will suffer, people won't even be able to cook the food, if they can find the food in the stores that they want to put on the table to feed their families. And all this because most people thought they were doing the right thing in supporting the war against Russia with Ukraine. In all honesty, I'm not one for wars. I believe it's wrong. I believe a lot of people innocently get killed and harmed. But I also believe it's none of our business at all, and that we should keep our nose right out of this. And if people think that the United Nations are good people and peacekeepers that are there to make sure everything is good, they're nothing more than a bad referee, deliberately, for their own intents and purposes, for them to move forward with their agendas as they too start to seize vast parts of the world. We need to be awake to what's really going on here. We need to be able to project towards the future, and we need to be able to see the damage that this is going to cause to our lives if we live in one of these countries that have supported the effort against an absolute massive military might, and a military might that is joining with other massive military mights around the world. This is not good. It's not going to be good for everyone. So what you should start thinking about now is where your alliance lies. And I'm not all about doom and gloom. There are solutions. People have voices. A whole campaign to say we are not for the war and the war should end. Russia have been asking for peace talks. Russia have been asking for the solutions to come forward. But believe me, when it gets to a point where there is no other solution, and these wars have been won by Russia, at that point, when we try and broker a peace deal and we sit down at the table to discuss what can be done, the terms and conditions are going to be very, very different to what they were in the first place. And this is where we start to see the global suffering of those who supported the war. We don't have to choose a side. We just have to choose the side of humanity and what is best for the people moving forward. Not what is best for the corporations, not what is best for the huge oligarchs and those who will actually make billions and billions of dollars from the military-industrial complex should the war escalate further. We can have peace in the world as long as people make the effort to have their voice heard and the people solidarity make this choice for that to happen. Have a think about it, people. Have a think about how our support of certain things and being conned into that support can cause massive damage to our own personal lives. We have to stop this. We are our own worst enemy sometimes. and we have to make the changes for a far brighter and better future for not only you, but for your children and future generations moving forward. But we need to first be aware of who it is we're against and what it is we should do. And sometimes we should remove our emotions from the table and think clearly about how this can affect us. Take care, everyone. Thank you.